What's up, everyone, and welcome to episode 204 of Two Amazon Sellers and a Microphone, brought to you by Solozo. And today, this is going to be a lot of fun. We got a great guest with us. We're going to be talking about a lot of different topics on Amazon, but we're going to be talking about drop shipping, something we don't talk about very often on the show, as well as just a lot of other topics. We're going to cover the gamut. So joining us today is Shayne Cannell-Cohen, the CEO of Leading Digital Ecom. What's up, Shayne? How are you?
Hey guys, I appreciate you having me on the podcast. Honestly, episode 204, that's a huge milestone, so I'm happy to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you too. It's been fun. It's a journey, but we get to talk to amazing people in the space. So it's not really work. It is just a lot of fun. And we learned
it's work, Dustin. We get paid for this, man.
Yeah, it's true. It's work. It doesn't feel like it. It's a lot of fun. So we're excited to pick your brain today. There's so many ways to start businesses and make money on Amazon, whether it's private label or wholesale or retail arbitrage or online arbitrage or drop shipping, or there's so many ways, and there's all these nuances that are associated with each one. So it's really fun to explore them. Chris and I both test out a lot of different ways to sell on Amazon. But dropshipping is not one of them. And I know that's something you do. You also coach and train people. So we want to hear all about you first before we jump into our conversation. I know you're in Montreal right now. Give us a little background on you. How'd you get into this space? What's your story and what you're doing now?
Right. So I first started when I was 22 years old. I'm 23 years old right now. And look, I always knew about e-commerce. I've always heard of it, right? You see the ads, you see all these different types of things. I've always known about it. And then when I was in university studying full time, I was also working part time. And then what happened is that the pandemic hit. And once the pandemic hit, I lost my part-time job. And essentially I was left stranded with no stream of income for me to be able to actually make money, right? Nobody was hiring at the time. So it was difficult. So I knew at that point that, I just got to rely on myself. No one's coming to save me. And that's when I actually took action on, selling on Amazon. I created my seller account. And then I scaled pretty fast. Within my first month, hit $10,000 in revenue. Within 3 months, 50,000. Within 7 months, we crossed the six-figure mark. And now we're about 16 months in, just a little bit over $300,000 in revenue. So definitely scaled really fast. Not something I would envision for myself when I first started this, for sure. But like you said, right, there's so many different ways for you to sell on Amazon, whether it's, FBA or FBM and all the different models that fall underneath those. It really just boils down to finding what works best for you, right? And FBA works for a whole bunch of different people, but for me, I found that dropshipping was really just a very easy business model that I can go with.
When you were researching this, did you end up finding a course or a mentor that led you to the drop shipping method?
Right. So originally, yes. I've always heard of drop shipping on Shopify. However, the issue was that you have to learn how to code, you got to build a website, you got to run ads, and that just didn't seem very fun to me. So I did end up taking a little bit of like an introductory course. I soon realized that everything was just on YouTube, essentially. And that's where, I realized, okay, well, the problem in the e-commerce space. So I was very much self-taught. And as you guys may also know, is you learn a lot. You can only learn so much on YouTube. It's when you're in the weeds of Seller Central, when you're dealing with customers, when you're dealing with seller support, that's where you actually learn how to run a profitable Amazon business, right? And through that experience, through that time, and through, money that I did spend, I was able to kind of learn as I went on.
For people that are listening right now, we have listeners that are in every stage and probably in every different model on Amazon. For those that don't know the nuances of what drop shipping is, can you explain what it means to be a drop shipper on Amazon?
Right. So in a very broad sense, a drop shipper is the middleman, right? So we'll run through a little bit of a hypothetical situation is, let's say I open up my Amazon storefront and then I have a supplier, and from my supplier, I find a table, whatever. I go ahead and list that table on my Amazon inventory. What ends up happening is that when I sell on, let's say, for instance, the US marketplace, it's a huge marketplace. Someone like Chris, who is looking for a table, might go ahead and say, hey, look, this looks like a really cool table. I'll go ahead and buy it. When you buy that table from my Amazon storefront, I get essentially your shipping info, right? So I'll get your home address, your zip code, your apartment number if you do live in one, and then your phone number as well. So what I do from that point is once I have your shipping information, I'll go to my supplier site that I found that table at originally. And let's say Chris paid $200. My supplier has it for $100, right? So what ends up happening is I go to checkout, I use my own credit card. But the trick is here is that when I'm checking out, I'm not using my own shipping address. I'm using Chris's shipping address. And what that's going to do is it's essentially letting the supplier know, hey, this is where you're going to ship the product, right? It's going to be shipped directly to Chris's doorstep. Although I am using my credit card and my billing information, it's not a problem to have a different billing information from the shipping address. And that's how essentially you're the middleman in this whole entire instance where you're kind of just copy and pasting information from one place and putting it into another.
And then go ahead, Chris. You had a question.
So I was going to say, finding these suppliers, that's part of the trick of this is finding suppliers, opening up an account with them, maybe having the right business information. What's your method on like finding, I'm sure you're going to say Google, but what's your method on finding suppliers and like opening up with them? What do you have to do? What are they looking for in order to get an account?
Right. So obviously, yes, Google is one thing. But like you said, right, is suppliers are half the battle. If you don't have good suppliers, you do not have good products to list on Amazon. It's that simple, right? So when it boils down to finding suppliers, in my honest opinion, it's always a good habit to source domestically, right? So I live in Canada. I sell on the Canadian marketplace, right? Every single person that I work with in the Canadian marketplace, they have Canadian suppliers. Every person that sells in the US marketplace, they have US suppliers. Every person that has in the UK marketplace, they have UK suppliers. So when it boils down to finding what suppliers will work best for you, you have to properly assess, okay, well, what product categories do you want to sell in first of all, right? I always recommend selling in at least 3 to 4 different major categories. So that way you're not necessarily limiting yourself to just one product niche. And then from there, using Google, right? So dropshipping is a little bit different. And what we can end up doing is, you can type in Google, let's say, for instance, Amazon dropship suppliers UK or Amazon dropship suppliers Canada, right? And you really got to do your due diligence, right? As there's a saying like you can hide a dead body on the second page of Google. So many people don't go past the second page of Google, but lo and behold, that's where all those little hidden gems are, right? And then it's just a matter of reaching out to those suppliers, right? So many people, they get scared. Well, I don't have a business registered. I don't have, all these sales history or anything like that. Well, look, you don't know how something is going to work out until you actually try, right? And what's the worst thing that's going to happen? They're just going to simply tell you no. And then you move on from there, right? So it really just boils down to doing your due diligence and ensuring that your keyword research for your suppliers, right? Because you will come across suppliers, but sometimes they have a minimum order quantity of 300, 500, right? So with dropshipping, we're looking for a minimum order quantity of just 1. And that's where really, really you have to get specific when you are searching on Google for your dropship suppliers.
I've got so many questions.
Me too. I don't know where to go. Like, do I want to talk about capital? Do I want to talk about like products?
There's so many things, but I want to just start sort of from the beginning and the basics of this. Number one, is there any issues with this? Is there any like thing that Amazon doesn't want to be done? Are they open to this drop shipping model? I know there's things like you have to enter a tracking number when you send the order, right, to Amazon. So it goes, you got to trust your supplier meets these shipping times, so you don't get any negative feedback. Is there any like potential hurdle to this when you're getting started? Is there anything that you've seen where Amazon is like maybe cracking down on it, or they're okay with it, or any of that?
Right. So the main thing when you're drop shipping, your supplier has to be 2 things, right? They have to supply the packaging in a rather brown box or a blank box, right, with no kind of branded packaging on it. And then from that, no invoices included, right? Those are the 2 most important things when you're looking for suppliers, right? Is ensuring that your customer isn't going to receive an invoice. Because if your customer does receive an invoice, well, that's when you get into trouble with Amazon, right? And as you guys do know, obviously, drop shipping from retail suppliers is against Amazon terms of services. Now, look, it's done, right? People do it. You know, a lot of FBM sellers out there will be drop shipping from, let's say, for instance, Walmart or Home Depot. There's a big gray area in that space, right? But when you are sourcing from suppliers, you're going to have to make sure at all times that no invoice is included, and that you are not going to, you know, your customers aren't going to receive, let's say, for instance, if I have a wholesale supplier like Sporting Goods 101, they're not going to have Sporting Good 101 labeling on that exact package.
Do most of these suppliers you work with, are they already set up that way? I mean, is it seamless? They do this for others and it's easy, or are you having to train them on what to do?
Right. So they're already all set up. It's what we call dropship friendly suppliers. So essentially ensuring that, yes, they do offer blank packaging. And then from there, there's going to be no invoices including in those packages as well.
Yeah, that invoice is huge. I mean, if I bought something for $200 on Amazon and there was an invoice in there for $95, I'd be pissed.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, but it makes sense. To me, there's no difference in that. If you're actually dealing with the actual supplier of the product, there's no difference in that than you buying 1,000 units and storing them in a 3PL and having them shipped out. The only difference is there's no initial capital outlay. Large. Yes. You're able to do it. So this system, if people are looking into drop shipping, this is absolutely the way that you should be doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Look, the reason why I first started is for one, capital, right? Capital was so limited. I was studying full-time, barely even working part-time. So we're talking about somewhere in the range of like $500 to work with, right? And drop shipping in a sense is a foolproof business model where you only have to ever spend money when you make money, right? Like when people do FBA, and FBA works for literally tons and tons of people. It's a great business model. But the issue is sometimes that you are running the risk of your products that you bought beforehand, them not selling, right? And then it's either stuck in an Amazon warehouse or it's stuck in your garage or your 3PL, whatever it is. So with drop shipping, I'm essentially ensuring myself that, yes, I do get my return on investment and more, right? Because I only ever have to spend money for a product when I actually get a sale for it.
I'm going to keep asking questions, Chris. I know I'm stealing your thunder, but this is so interesting. Okay. What's your criteria? So you find a supplier. Are you trying to find a supplier where their product already exists on Amazon? The listing is already created, it's sharp, and now you're competing with other people that they do drop shipping for to win the buy box? Or are you trying to find products where they don't have a presence on Amazon and you're going from scratch, where you're building their listing out? You're setting everything. What is your mix of that you're trying to do?
Right. So what we do essentially is I try to look for both, right? Is when I'm looking for a supplier, I'd want to look for notable brands that I'm aware of. Now, I've been doing this for almost 2 years now. I do know what brands sell well and which ones don't. But if you're a beginner, you're not going to know anything, right? You're not going to know what brand does well on Amazon and which one doesn't. So it really just boils down to kind of doing a little bit of your due diligence in the sense of testing the market out, right? So again, with drop shipping, if you open up a wholesale account, let's say, for instance, with a supplier and they have brand XYZ, well, if you see that brand XYZ is not yet selling on Amazon, you can go from scratch. That's not an issue, right? And test it out. Again, you're not spending any money to do that, right? It's free for you to essentially list products on your inventory when you're drop shipping. All it really funnels down to is the second that you get a sale, okay, well, that's when I know that this brand is profitable, right? Then it's also a lot easier when the brand already exists on Amazon, the product listings are already there, the SEO is done for it, keyword research is done for it. So, it makes it a lot easier for you to just simply put your product price on that listing. But I do like to do a little bit of a both, because sometimes when a product doesn't yet exist on Amazon, it's kind of like a big opportunity for you to kind of disrupt the market in a way.
Interesting.
I'm a sneak in here. So I've dabbled in some of this before. Problem is tracking numbers. Like sometimes you don't get tracking numbers quick, and so you have to, quote unquote, manipulate one. So what's the turnaround time for getting a tracking number? Like if you buy a supplier, how soon are you getting the valid real tracking number from them? Like what's the normal time there?
Right. So in order for you to counteract this issue, you have to set up your shipping templates according to your supplier's shipping times and processing times, right? Because let's say, for instance, if my supplier has a 2-day processing time, I'll essentially set my handling time on Amazon to 3 to 4 days, right? Just to give me a little bit of that safety net. 3 to 4 days, customers are, they're willing to kind of wait that period of time. Now, if I'm inexperienced, and I speak, from experience myself, this is what I did in the beginning, is I didn't even bother setting up a shipping template. I just went as is with the preset shipping template that Amazon gives you. And lo and behold, it's like a 2-day shipping time. My supplier took 5 days. In that instance, what you would do is you would need to generate, like you said, a fake tracking ID, right? But in order for you to kind of not run into that issue is you have to make sure that you are getting the real tracking time in direct correlation to what your shipping template says on Amazon, right? And if there is the odd case where your supplier is backed up and they have supply chain issues or something went wrong, then in those instances, you would be able to communicate with the customer for one, see if they're willing to be a little bit kind of willing to work with you on those instances. Or if not, if they're just unwilling to work with you and they really want a tracking number as soon as possible, upload a fake tracking ID for the time being. And then once your supplier gives you the real tracking ID, the valid tracking ID, you can re-upload it to your to Sell Essential for that specific order ID.
Interesting.
And is that a little wishy-washy? Like it could affect your account at some rate?
At some point, yes. We did have a little bit of an issue with that where shipping carriers were using recycled tracking codes that we didn't know about. So when they're reusing recycled tracking codes, the Amazon system is going to detect it immediately, right? And they don't like that. So in those instances where kind of like a black event where they start to use recycled tracking codes for no good reason, you could run into some issues. But essentially, these softwares that we use to generate fake tracking information, it's not fake tracking information. It's based on where your city is or where the destination city is. It'll grab a tracking information from the FedEx system or from the UPS system and say, here's your tracking code. It's going to arrive on this date at this specific city, but it's not going to have a specific address attached to it.
On that shipping code, on the shipping template, can that be done on an ASIN level or is that an entire account level?
So that could be done on an ASIN level. That would be very, very tedious if you do it at an ASIN level. Like I have over 1,800 products in my inventory, right? So if I were to do that on every single ASIN, that's a little much, right? So what I typically like to do is do your shipping templates according to what your supplier shipping times are like.
Got it.
Yeah, there's so many nuances to this because I'm sure every supplier is different. They handle things differently. If they mess anything up, it's on you, but that is their business, so they're obviously don't want to mess it up.
Right.
And obviously, I guess worst case scenario, you can always cancel an order if you had to.
Yeah, one of the best things about when you do fulfillment by merchant is you are in control of customer communication, right? And we have certain scripts in place that kind of lead the customer into sending in a cancellation request for their order. Because when they send in a cancellation request for that specific order, it doesn't go against your pre-fulfillment cancellation rate, right? So that's what we want to try to push towards if that case does end up happening, is try to have them cancel the order and not you cancel the order yourself.
Is that just as simple as a note saying, we apologize, the supply is backed up. It's going to take 2 weeks to get this to you. If you would like to cancel this order, we totally understand. Something of that nature.
Yeah, something of that nature, literally just like a copy paste script that we have for 2 to 3 different scenarios. If, like you said, like the supplier time is taking 2 to 3 weeks, if the customer is willing to wait, great. If not, we'll be more than happy to offer them a full refund for their order.
Okay, let's go back to finding and validating products and suppliers. So when you're looking, do you start your research on Amazon with tools like Helium 10 or Jungle Scout or Zone Guru or anything like that, trying to find good products to sell and then go find the supplier? Or are you reversing that? Are you just finding suppliers and seeing what they have?
Right. So there's two different ways that I do my product research is essentially what you broke down, right? The first way is what I call literally just the original research process where we're stemming our product research from the supplier side first, right? Do your product research by brand. So find a brand. If my supplier, whatever, Sporting Goods 101 has a brand Nike, let's say for instance, I'll type in Nike in their catalog and go through literally every single product that they have and see if that product is on Amazon and see if I can compete on price. Now, that's a very efficient and very effective way to ensure that you're maximizing kind of everything that your supplier has to offer. Or you can do the reverse product research method, right? Where you're kind of in the Amazon catalog first, finding where, with drop shippers, you want to look where Amazon FBA sellers or Amazon isn't on the product listing, right? Because they will typically dominate the buy box over, fulfillment by merchant sellers. So from there, once I find an actual product where Amazon is not on the product listing or it's not fulfilled by FBA, what I'll then do is I'll kind of reverse the search and see if my supplier has that specific brand and that specific item in their catalog.
And then in terms of the competitiveness of it, what are your metrics there? So you're looking through your suppliers list and you're like, oh, there's these Nike shoes, and then you go on and there's 90 sellers in the buy box. How far back are you looking at price history to see if there's a lot of fluctuation? And then what's your margin? That's like your sweet spot. What are you looking for?
Right. So when it comes to competition, I'm in the Canadian marketplace, right? So US is one beast in itself. When you look at a product listing, you'll have on average 30 sellers. For Canada, we'll have maybe 1 to 10 sellers on a product listing. So the competition is a lot lower, right? So if I ever came across a product listing where there's 90 sellers, immediately just back out, right? Because I know that the price war would happen where if I try to undercut someone, it's just going to continuously be an undercutting festival where no one's going to end up being profitable at that point. So what I try to do is I'll set a maximum range. Let's say, for instance, using either the Helium 10 extension or AMZ Scout, I'll try to get a better understanding of what the price is doing over, let's say, a 1 to 3 year period, and see if, let's say, for instance, these other fulfillment by merchant sellers, if they're pricing their products accordingly, right? If I see that my supplier has a product for $20 and they're selling it for $120, I see that they're just being way too greedy with their prices, right? So that's when I know that based on previous price chart history, I can know that, okay, well, I can essentially qualify for the buy box, I can price my product competitively, and I can drop the BSR down as well.
So that's a real sweet spot where you've got people selling, it's not super competitive, and they're sort of gouging the market price on that, and you can come in because maybe they're not using that same model. Maybe they're buying that from the Nike store or whatever, right, and trying to sell it. So you can jump in there. That's so. Another interesting thing about this to me that just came up when you're talking, when you're in the private label or the FBA business, the size of the product really matters. If you start getting into that oversized, or like you mentioned, a table, that's almost a non-starter sometimes when you're talking about with the fees and what it's going to take to do that. But it seems like with this model, it works. And when people buy a table, maybe they're not expecting Prime free shipping. Maybe they're willing to pay, whatever, $30 to have a table shipped to them. Right. So do you find that? I mean, is there a category that you're specializing in where like maybe larger and bigger products are more attractive for this model as opposed to jump ropes?
Right. So that's a great question. You literally unloaded a lot there. So for a beginner, what I recommend is starting with smaller items, right? Smaller items, typically customers won't tend to care as much, right? Because the likelihood of something going wrong with the order fulfillment process, it's a little bit higher when you're a beginner. For me, I started with products that were $30, $40, something like, I don't know, water bottles and stuff like that, supplements. And then now over 80% of my store is high ticket items, right? So these are items that are $1,000 plus, right? And those items essentially most likely are going to be over 100 pounds, right? Now, the beauty with drop shipping is, like you said, is my supplier has their shipping costs typically in the listing price that they have, right? So let's say if I want to list something for $2,000, my supplier will have it for $1,200, let's say, for instance, right? Now, this is kind of the best case scenario when you're drop shipping, is doing high ticket. Not only is there a lot less competition, but you realize that your competition is pricing their products in a insanely stupid manner, right? They have this, it's as if they've never sold on Amazon before in their life, and they have no understanding of what a reasonable price is. And then from there, there's so many opportunities where you can just simply jump in, make $500, $300 net profit on every single product sold. Right? The only downside is the BSR is typically higher. So that means that the item will sell maybe 5 to 10 times, opposed to, if it was a lower ticket item, selling 300 to 400 times a month.
Yeah. What do you do about returns?
Oof.
Right. So returns typically, if it's a really heavy item, I'll make sure, like, my supplier that I'm using, their shipping carrier would typically be UPS. UPS offers free pickup for any sort of item, right? So if a customer wants to return an item, literally, I had this scenario not too long ago where they wanted to return an item. It was like 87 pounds, and they just didn't like the size or something like that. I was like, okay, no problem, right? And when you're doing FBM, you always got to give the customer the benefit of the doubt, and you just got to abide by what they say. So what I end up doing is just simply schedule a free pickup with UPS. And that way UPS goes to their door, knocks on the door, grabs the item, and that item goes directly back to my supplier warehouse. So essentially, again, I'm just the middleman in this whole entire thing, right? I'm just putting one shipping label from one place, putting it into another.
Are you out the money in that case, or does the supplier just put that right back into their inventory? Or what if it's damaged, or how does that relationship work with suppliers?
Right. So obviously, in our return instructions, when a customer does return an item, you have to be very, very clear that, look, your item is going to go through an investigation, right? And if it's clear that the item is unopened, the item is not damaged, right? Then you will get your full money back, right? Now, depending on the supplier that you work with, they might charge a restocking fee. And based on the restocking fee, you have to communicate that to the customer, right? Because the restocking fee on something that's $1,000, $2,000, that's a hefty restocking fee, right? So you got to be able to always ensure that your customers know what they're getting into when they return an item, especially when it's high ticket. And majority of the time, suppliers are going to be they're going to be willing to work with you because they're used to it, right? So returns happens; it's part of the game. Now, for things that are a little bit higher ticket and might require a little bit more due diligence and sweet talking on your end with the supplier in order for them to process that return. But besides that, it's naturally a pretty easy process.
Yeah. This is great. I love this kind of like method. Low capital, easy to get in, but you just turn and burn. What's your day-to-day look like? I know it's kind of early now, but what's your day-to-day look like? You get up, we check the stock. What's it look like?
Right. So currently I'm very removed from working inside my business. I have it fully automated for myself. So I have a team of 3 virtual assistants that run my Amazon dropshipping store for me. I spend roughly about 2 to 3 hours every single week. So I have meetings on Mondays and meetings on Fridays to kind of assess the general health of the store, make sure account health is in line, make sure, profit margins are looking good. And then, if there ever is something, if someone contacts me through Slack, I'll have to hop on Seller Central. But really, my days are kind of just wake up 6 o'clock in the morning, typically have breakfast, go to the gym. And a lot of my time is really put towards ensuring that I'm focusing my efforts on my students, right? I have a group of 79 people that I coach on how to sell on Amazon. So I really make sure 100% that I'm focusing a lot of my time businesses.
Oof. Sounds like the perfect gig.
Sounds pretty nice, right?
So now let's go back, because obviously when you started, you didn't have a team of virtual assistants. I'm assuming you were doing a lot of this yourself, because you were the one who had to put together your own SOPs so that you could relay this to your VAs and have them replicate what you were doing. What would a day look like in the beginning before you started building out your team?
Right. So in the beginning, and just to preface a little bit, I only outsourced work to my first virtual assistant on month 8. That's when I hit about $160,000 in revenue. So from 0 to 160K, I was literally doing everything myself. So what that consisted of really is I tell people this all the time. Income producing activities when it comes to selling on Amazon is product research and listing products, right? The name of the game with dropshipping is list as many products possible because it's free for you to do so, right? Amazon doesn't necessarily put a cap on how many products you should list in your inventory, right? You'll be gated from certain categories and certain brands, of course, but doing product research is how I spent majority of my days, right? I'm talking about 5 to 6 hours a day if I had available to really just go in the weeds and do as much as I could, right? And find these profitable products, find these profitable items, list 60 products in one day to be able to ensure like the more I list, the higher chances of me actually making sales on Amazon. And again, drop shipping, I only have to spend money when I make money. So it was kind of like an ideal situation where I know I only have to focus on product research. If a product listing hits these metrics or this criteria, that's when I know it's going to sell. And that's when I know I'll be able to qualify for the buy box and get sales within, let's say, I don't know, 20 to 48 hours.
Wow. And now another question that pops to mind is, could you do this in the US marketplace too? I mean, could you just start getting suppliers in the US and list there, or are you doing that?
Right. So honestly, the US marketplace is the most ideal marketplace to start this. The reason why is because suppliers, right? I'm in Canada. We are very, very limited in regards to how many suppliers we have available to us that are wholesale and that are dropship friendly. But when you go in the US, there's a plethora of different dropship friendly suppliers for you to have access to. So you can most definitely do this in the US marketplace. I have people from all around the globe dropshipping. So we're talking about from the UK, from Italy, Germany, from Guyana, people abroad selling in the US marketplace as well. That's really been kind of like a game changer for a lot of people is they're able to tap into a marketplace of, I don't know, let's say 300 million people, right? 300 million Amazon customers. Well, when you're able to tap into that organic traffic on a month by month basis, your sales will explode if you know what exactly to look for when it comes to selling on Amazon.
This is, I mean, I almost see this as an interesting way to break into new marketplaces, get your account rolling. If I wanted to start selling in the UK, I could utilize my existing account to do some drop shipping there. Same thing with Canada and other places. Where do you see this model going in the future? Do you see it growing, more and more opportunities for people and more products to sell? Do you see a lot of these suppliers just bypassing the drop shipping model altogether and just starting to sell themselves on Amazon and do it and cut you out? How do you see this going in the future?
Right. So, Amazon there will be more regulations and more rules that Amazon sellers will have to abide by when you are doing fulfillment by merchant. But no matter what you're doing, FBA or FBM, we're all, living in Amazon's world. You just got to figure out how exactly can you live in their world without running into any issues, right? So in the future, I don't necessarily see many suppliers going into Amazon because they already have, when I approach suppliers, they already have their whole system in place, right? It's just a matter of spending the time and spending the money to do them themselves that they don't want to do. So that's where people like myself, drop shippers, is a good point of differentiation. And how to get wholesalers, on board with you is, look, I can essentially do all the heavy lifting for you. I can list the products on your right? I can bring you X amount of revenue every single month if you do decide to take me on board with your wholesale accounts. So I don't really see the suppliers coming on board with this. I definitely do see a little bit kind of more restrictions coming in regards to the US marketplace. The US marketplace is always more advanced than the Canadian marketplace. So one thing that happened in the US is automated returns, right? So auto-approved returns, sorry. So those auto-approved returns for drop shippers, a little bit of an issue, right? Because essentially what we want to do is we don't want to have a preset shipping label that gets sent out to the customer, right? Because we work with different suppliers. So, you got to use different mail forwarders and things like that. That was an issue that we had to overcome that was implemented not too long ago. But, again, it's just a matter of if there is something that comes up, we're going to try to figure out how exactly we can work around it to ensure that we're still going to be able to conduct this business and still be able to ensure that we're going to drop ship and essentially be the only be the middleman in these instances.
Something that makes me nervous is like and Dustin and I are private label sellers, but if we want to entertain this drop shipping, Well, I'd want to get a new seller account. I want to be separated from my private label account, and I would want to have a separate Seller Central account for just drop shipping. But that makes me nervous, right? Like I don't want to do that because I don't want my private label Seller Central account to get flagged and shut down. You see an issue there?
So people do have multiple seller accounts, right? Now, in order for you to get multiple seller accounts, like you have your private label brand, and then you also have just your random dropship business, in order for you to make sure that those two things are separate, you got to go through some hoops, right? So you got to make sure that you actually go to register a new business under a specific, let's say, under your sister's name or your brother's name, let's say, for instance. Then 6 months down the line, you're going to be able to transfer the ownership when you register the business to your own name, right? And then in Seller Central, everything else has to be, if I have my own bank account registered for my own private label business on Seller Central, I can't use my own private bank account or my own charge methods for the dropshipping business. The system will detect, well, why do you have two different Seller Central accounts, but the same charge methods or same deposit methods? So you got to make sure everything is separate, right? So we're talking about really developing a brand new entity and registering it to ensure that you won't run into those issues where, if your dropship account gets flagged, that means that your private label account will get flagged at the same time. So you got to make sure that you're kind of keeping the two really separate in that instance.
So I've got 3 now EINs. Is that sufficient enough? Like if I just have another EIN number, but it's still in my name, is it still going to get a flag?
Right. If it's still in your name, to my knowledge, in the US, it's a little bit different because the way you guys register businesses is somewhat a little bit different in regards to Canada and Quebec. But to me, yes, if it's still in your name, it would get flagged. Now, there's a reason why I said like registering the business in your family member's name first or your friends, whatever, and then transferring that ownership to your name like 6 months down the line.
Interesting. So many opportunities. I love
Right.
it. I love it. What do you, so this coaching, you're helping people. Talk us through this. What is your program like? And are you enjoying spreading this knowledge to other people?
Right. So I run an Amazon coaching program. Essentially what this program does is it helps a brand new Amazon beginner, someone who doesn't even know what selling on Amazon is, and turns them into a complete expert. Right. So this program is helped to get people results within 7 days. So get their first sale within 7 days. And then from there, be able to profitably build a business. So what I offer is a lifetime mentorship, right? Not necessarily 3-month mentorship or 6-month mentorship, because it doesn't make sense for me to necessarily only be there for 3 months of your business, right? Because economies of scale is the more you grow, the different sets of problems that you're going to be able to encounter as you grow on. So I offer a lifetime mentorship to ensure that every step of the way, every step of, that you grow as an Amazon seller, I'm going to be there for you. And it has been by far the most rewarding thing in my life that I've ever done, more than selling on Amazon. Being able to create impact in people's lives has been the most fulfilling thing that I've been able to do in my whole entire life, because I'm talking about helping a mom of 10 kids, let's say, for instance, I have in my program, 45 minutes a day, helping her set up her seller account, right? Or helping an 18-year-old kid who just started college build an online business and get his first sales within 2 days, right? So these different types of instances, I work with so many different types of people, different time availabilities. It's so much fun because I'm essentially restarting all over again, but without all the bumps and all the hiccups. So it's just such a great pleasure to be able to help other people.
That's awesome, man. And it's great you're doing it. I'm sure it's very fulfilling to see these people have success. And I know there's people listening right now. They're like, okay, I got to figure this out. I want to get involved. So how can they contact you, reach out to you, and start working with you?
Right. So I only have one place that you can actually reach me, and it's going to be on Instagram at shayne.ecom, SHAYNE.ecom, with one M, and literally just shoot me a message. We'll talk. Let's be able to maybe even hop on a call, probably assess like what are your goals are like, what are you looking to achieve, and see really if selling on Amazon is for you, because it's not necessarily going to be for everyone, right? So it's a matter of properly assessing if based on your goals, if this is what you want to achieve, how can you kind of build a profitable and sustainable online business, especially in times like today where nothing is essentially guaranteed.
Shayne.ecom on Instagram. Everyone's got to go check that out. And I've got one final question for you, because you're buying.
Make it a good one.
That's gonna be a good one. This is good. You're buying a lot of product, so every day you're going in and you're ordering stuff to get shipped. Do you have a card that you're using that gets you like a ton of airline points? And are you just flying everywhere and staying at sweet hotels for free all the time because of this strategy?
Right. So yeah, great question. So one thing that you can do with drop shipping and with literally selling on Amazon in general is selling on Amazon and traveling on rewards points or air miles. The two complement each other perfectly, right? So when I started to sell on Amazon, I realized that I need to sign up for credit cards that have a very high sign up bonus, right? I literally just signed up last night for the American Express Business Platinum card, right? And essentially it's 120,000 rewards points. If I spend 10K within the next 3 months, I'll spend 10K within, I don't know, 2 to 3 weeks, let's say, for instance. That's not going to be an issue. But that 120,000 rewards points will be able to get me from here to, let's say, Istanbul business class round trip, right? So those types of things I'm utilizing and I'm capitalizing on to the best of my ability. Speaking with people in the field that are very well versed in kind of like the travel hacking, as they call it, industry. So definitely the Amex Business Platinum card is a great card. Now, if you're not looking to pay the annual fee for that card, I would definitely recommend any sort of other Amex card with like a, we'll say Amex Cobalt or the Amex Gold card. Those are really great cards as well for a beginner who's looking to start selling on Amazon.
That's awesome. That's such a great benefit to doing this, is getting all those points and being able to travel like that. Shayne, this has been fun. What a great conversation. Kind of opened our eyes to something that we haven't really dove into a lot. Fascinating just to see the different opportunities. And there's lots of opportunities for people listening to jump into this. Everyone needs to go reach out to Shayne.ecom on Instagram, get in touch with them, start a conversation, and start drop shipping on Amazon. Sounds fun. Thanks for joining us, Shayne.
Thank you guys again. I really appreciate it.
We had a blast. And everyone, if you like content like this, make sure you're subscribing to our podcast so you get notified when we have new episodes. They usually come out almost every single day. So there's always lots of content with really cool people like Shayne who are doing really neat things with their lives and helping others. So make sure you're doing that. Subscribe to our podcast. You can also see these live streams on all of Solozo's social media channels, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. Go there. You can watch all of our past episodes, see the conversation that we're having, see the passion that people have, like Shayne, for what they're doing. So make sure you definitely do that. Additionally, if you are a private label, or even in this model, I'm sure you've maybe run some ads potentially, Shayne. I don't know, on Amazon.
No.
If you never do ads, I mean, that's the benefit of doing that model. You don't have to run ads. But if you're a private label seller and you're looking to have help running your advertising on Amazon, Solozo can help automate and optimize your ads for you to take that workload off of your plate. Just go to Solozo.com. You can book a demo. You can talk with either Chris or myself, and it'll walk you through all the steps and how Solozo can help completely automate that for you. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Shayne, thanks so much for joining.